Tonight our lesson text is going to be found in Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to begin in verse 10 and read through verse 17. We'll be talking about goals tonight. Michael, if I don't say what it is, has to go through probably most of the lesson to figure out what it is before we post it online. So our lesson tonight will be about goals. We're going to talk about goals. I'm always reluctant to give a title to a lesson because you never know where I'm going to go or what direction I'm going to take. And when we get through, we don't want somebody saying, well, he never said a word about goals in that lesson. But maybe we can tonight. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 10 through 17. Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Wherefore take unto you the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all to stand. Stand therefore, having your loins girt about with truth, and having on the breastplate of righteousness, and your feet shod with the preparation of the gospel of peace. And above all, taking the shield of faith, wherewith you shall be able to quench all the fiery darts of the wicked, and take the helmet of salvation and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. Paul is talking about putting on an armor here. The reason is obvious. If we think about it, there is a common enemy to man that is prevalent in the world today. It's the influence, the effects, the impact that Satan has on our world. That influence, that impact began in the Garden of Eden when through the serpent, Satan was first able to beguile Mother Eve, and then Adam succumbed simply because his wife had made the choice and he wanted to stand by her. And he gave in, he yielded, and sin entered the world. So it is imperative that as Christians we make ourselves ready. We make ourselves strong for lots of reasons, so that we can withstand, so that we can stand against the opposition, so that we can be on God's side, so that we can make a difference with our own lives, and so that we can encourage and support those around us. But another reason for us to stand is the church has to stand strong, not just for me as an individual, and not just for us as the family of God, but also because of the great amount of impact that as we live our lives, we should have on our individual communities. There really is no brighter beacon than the light that reflects, as Christians, reflect the image of Jesus Christ. That's why Jesus said, let your light so shine before men, that they may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven. Light automatically shines. But since we are reflectors, then it's incumbent on us to make sure that we polish ourselves in the way that God would have us be, so that the light that comes from Jesus is able to reflect clearly to those around us. Because the church's light is never stronger. The church's light never shines brighter. The church's work never works harder and never gains more respectability than you and I as individual members have to demonstrate in our own lives. Sometimes, in some cases, some people, the only exposure or the first exposure they're ever going to get from God's Word is going to come from us. The Bible is freely written by God and given to us and preserved throughout all of time. We know that to be true. He said, though heaven and earth pass away, my words will never pass away. God has preserved His Word. And the Bible is freely available to all those who might be willing to attain it in our world today. I used to would say our society. But I believe in our world, with the amount of access that we have through internet and different things, I believe that people have an opportunity, should they so choose to do so, to at least examine the Bible. but very few do. To prove my point, we use a company, and most of you, some of you might be familiar, we use LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place where business people post all their information, and people with common interests and goals can add you to their LinkedIn. You can add them to your LinkedIn, and so if you have something you're promoting, you can post it and you can repost it. It'll show up on your page, and people that follow you are able to see it. Very handy tool. But it's interesting, I've been using LinkedIn. I've had it for 9 years, but I haven't used it except in the last 3 months. I had to refresh it and go back and change my information to reflect what we're doing as a company. And I had in the last 60 days, I've had 2 young gentlemen from somewhere in the continent of Africa add me to their LinkedIn page, or asked me to be added. And I just added them, and then I started looking. I should have looked before I added. And so I started getting all kinds of messages from them, and one of them was telling me how sad their life was and how destitute they were, didn't even have food to eat, and he's on a cell phone texting me all this stuff. And I'm thinking, okay, you got Wi-Fi service somewhere, you got internet, you got a cell phone, but you haven't got anything to eat. I don't want to be sarcastic, and I certainly don't want to misunderstand what this guy was talking about, but I'm sorry. It's kind of like when somebody comes up and tells me that they're starving to death, hadn't had anything to eat, and they got a cigarette or a package of tobacco in their back pocket. I'm not saying that's their choice, but it's hard for me to find it credible when somebody has something that they don't have to have to survive in life, and yet they're reaching out to get somebody to hand them something to eat, or in his case, what he was wanting was not food, he was wanting money. Maybe it was genuine, maybe it wasn't. He's no longer on my LinkedIn page. He's on there, but he doesn't have the ability to message me anymore. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. Good Lord will decide that. But we have access, certainly, to the Bible. But we don't always take it. So it might very well be, even in our day-to-day lives, even though it never crosses our mind, that somebody that you and I meet or see or speak to on a regular basis is looking at us and we don't even know it. And it could very well be, if they're watching us, even though we don't know it. The kind of example, the pattern that we set, sheds a light on the gospel by shedding the light on Jesus Christ. And it strengthens the position that the church has in the community. It makes the church shine brighter in the community. It makes the church's work be a better functioning work. The church works harder. And the church gains respectability from us as members of the Lord's body. Now, it's not pointing to us, it's pointing beyond us. But when you point at the church, you're pointing to Jesus Christ, because the church is his body, the fullness of him that filleth all in all. And if we don't do that, then we have done a great disservice, because people are going to think no more of Christ and no more of Christianity than they think of you and they think of me if they don't read the Bible. So we're oftentimes the light. So Jesus says, all he says, he doesn't say make it shine. He just says let it shine. Think about how easy that is just to allow something to take place. You don't have to force it. You don't have to grab somebody off the street and grab a New Testament and lay them on their side and cram it in their ear. You don't have to lay them down on the ground and roll it up and shove it down their throat. All you got to do is just simply let it shine. His word will not return unto him void. God says his word will accomplish that which he designed it to do. So all we've got to simply do is let it shine. If we allow it, it'll automatically reflect in our lives. So our goal is going to always be the same. Our goal is going to be, as Christians, I'm going to strengthen and I'm going to build the New Testament church. But when our lives are otherwise, without meaning to, we might not even give it a thought, we're actually seeking the destruction of the church, because Christians, when they are evil spoken of, and rightfully so, leave a bad taste in the mouth of folks who might otherwise would examine the Bible. How many people have you ever heard say that they just wouldn't believe Christianity was right simply because they had seen too many Christians? Maybe you never have, but I have. Gandhi wrote one time that were it not for Christians, he could have been easily a Christian instead of whatever he was. I don't know if he's a Hindu or a Muslim. And what he meant by that, they had been under English rule as a nation. And England had brought to them the very worst of everything. And so his mindset was, it's a Christian nation. I'd have been a Christian hadn't it not been for Christians. Because lifestyles tear away. And our lack of commitment to setting the goals that God would have us reach. There's my word goals. I made it in there one time. Our lack of commitment in reaching those goals, our lack of commitment hinders a work that should be very easily done by every one of us if we just simply let the light shine. Now, of course, there's more to it than that. There's a good starting point. There's something that'll make a great difference. It's a simple matter of having the vision to see the big picture. It's easy to see something small and keep it in perspective because it requires less effort. It takes more vision to see something small and see how it can be made bigger. How many of us have ever walked by a pile of bricks and looked at a brick and said, oh, there's a house? Well, not very many. But you take bricks and start adding them together and they make a wall. You take walls and start adding them together and they make a structure. And every brick is important. I saw something interesting on LinkedIn this morning. It was showing how a small thing can amount to something big. And it was somebody in China, and it was so cool. They had about 3 things they had built out of it. It wasn't dominoes, but it was something like dominoes in a bigger version. And they had built this house. And that thing would have filled up this room right here. It was so big, and it was about, 15 or 18 foot tall. And going to it, it had a little trail of these blocks that they used to make it out of, and a woman was standing by it. And on cue, she just reached up there and touched one of them. And it went down the trail, and it hit one of the little blocks at the very bottom of this structure. And this was a big thing. Slowly and surely, it started crumbling. And then eventually it all just collapsed and went in. And they had 2 or 3 things like this. One they had built was like 2 buildings. Similar to that, in a big open area, bigger than this room. And they tripped one, and it all tumbled and failed. Why? Because one of those blocks, put together with another block, makes a whole. That's how a house is built. We are stones. Some are smaller stones than others, but we are stones. Peter said we are lively stones. What does that mean? That means living stones. We're lively, we're living, that make up the New Testament church. We have to be able to see that what I am doing, as small, as insignificant as I might think I am, what I am doing is part of the whole. And when we put each piece together and bind them with the gospel, we make a mighty fortress. And we can make a difference. But we have to be willing to see the big picture. Where there is no vision, Solomon said, the people perish. Proverbs 29 and verse 18. So vision is the ability to look ahead, planning for the future. Being a Christian plans for my future. It plans for my place called heaven. Being a Christian plans for the future. Y'all got to quit looking over here and laughing. I can't do that. Turn your head down, Holly. Okay, for those of you on this video that don't know what happened, an ink pen just came apart and shot across the room. So anyhow, and it's funny. Now back to where I was at. Where were we at? No, we were talking about vision. I lost it. My vision's gone. Vision means the ability to look ahead. It means planning for the future. Jesus encourages us to look ahead. In fact, Jesus said, no man having put his hand to the plow and looking back is fit or worthy of the kingdom of God. We've got to look ahead. You cannot plow a straight line unless you are looking ahead. You cannot mow a yard with a riding lawnmower or a push mower. If you're looking back over your shoulder, you'll never get it mowed. You're going over the same ground over and over and over again. You're missing part and you're double dipping on some. Vision looks ahead and plans. Vision means that I see a need. When I recognize that need, I act accordingly. Vision means when I look ahead and recognize a need, I'm going to see an opportunity. An opportunity is something that has to be recognized and seized. We're not going to see need. We're not going to see opportunity until we make plans to do so. We're not going to move ahead until we make a plan. And then when we make those plans have to be acted upon. Otherwise, there's no plan at all. Just put it in the drawer and leave it there. It's not going anywhere if we just set it aside and don't use it. The wise man said in Ecclesiastes 9 and verse 10, whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, he's going to come up here before it's over with. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. For there is no work, nor device, nor knowledge, nor wisdom in the grave, whither thou goest. Don't you worry about that. He won't be the first young'un I've picked up. And preach with him in my hand. You'll be all right. And I'll let him go when he gets ready. So vision is needed. We need, when it comes to places of worship, we need better places to assemble. And I don't mean by that grand structures, but I mean we saw the need a few years ago to get out of the woods. Do you know what I mean? To get out of places where people would not even know we existed. I've been to places before when you start looking for the church, nobody was aware of where it was at, and it might have been there for years, but nobody had a knowledge because they'd never seen it. They'd never noticed it. Does it matter? Doesn't matter as far as we're concerned, but it matters as far as the community knowing that, hey, the church of Christ exists here. And so with that need also comes the need to take a certain amount of pride in the appearance of things. We have to take a certain amount of pride in the appearance of the building. But those are just things. What we need as much or more than anything is we need men and women, young and old alike, who are willing to take a leadership role in being responsible for training, for teaching. Who's going to prepare the next generation if we don't? Who's going to make them ready? If I'm not willing, who's going to make them ready? We have seen evidence over the years, I have, of congregations where they literally died out, not necessarily because things changed in the community, but because the church in that particular place had no plan in mind. They didn't devote themselves to future growth, and so they allowed it just simply to go by the wayside. Sometimes that happens just because of necessity. Times are changing. Our kids don't stay here and work. We're very fortunate we've got the ones that we have because job opportunities simply are not here. There's always that danger that they'll leave, but at least when they go, let them take the truth with them. We're still rooting and grounding the congregations, future congregations, when we make certain our own children have the opportunity. Or our friends' children, or our family's children, whoever it is, we're making certain that they are grounded. And then if they stay here, that's even better. Because we've taught them a good work ethic. Leadership. We need leaders. We need men who are willing to step up as far as elders are concerned. We need men who are willing to step up as far as deacons are concerned. And let me explain something to you. That's not just some little title that you got. That's a responsibility. It's a work. And what it means is if you're a deacon or you're an elder, it means you're going to, number one, keep your nose clean. Number two, you're going to look around for opportunities to fill some of these voids that exist. It might be checking on somebody that's sick, a simple phone call, a simple text. Are you doing that? It might be that you might be in a position where you can go see somebody. I don't know what the opportunities are. It might be that you have the opportunity to oversee something in the congregation that you see needs to be done, and instead of saying, I'm going to let somebody else do it, you just go ahead and step up and do it. You don't have to ask permission. It's kind of like kids on the school ground, and they just keep continually walking by a piece of trash. And everybody thinks the same thing. They think, it's right there by the barrel, they think somebody else is going to pick it up. Why not be the one that picks it up? Why not take just a second? Do you know that the same fact that you got out of bed with this morning and stood up with, reached down and tied your shoes and stood up with, will also bend down to pick something up and stand back up? Now, with some of us, and I can vouch for that, it's a little more painful than what you can begin to imagine, but you know what? I still have to tie my shoes. And I still have to reach down and pick something up occasionally. I just have to handle it a little differently. But by all means, take the initiative to say, you know what? I'm going to do this. I promise you, nobody's going to get mad if you take it upon yourself to take care of something that needs to be done. I'm proud to death. I'm tickled to death the last few years. The door's always closed. You know, for many years, I dare not leave here till everybody was gone, because as soon as I did, I got home about an hour later. The next lady across, about an hour later, the lady next door was calling and said, Mr. Freddie, they left that door standing open. I'd have to drive back up here and close the front door. And it wasn't because somebody said, you know what, I'm going to leave the door open. They just thought somebody else was going to do it. Very simple. When my kids were little, they might go outside for whatever, and it'd be 12 degrees, and they'd leave the door standing wide open. Or it might be 173 degrees, and they'd leave the door standing wide open. That was a constant battle. And I remember one time I was getting ready to leave to go to work. And I don't know who was in there, but some of them were in there, and it was freezing cold, and I just left the door open. And I got about halfway down the sidewalk, and somebody hollered, Daddy, it's cold in here. I said, I'll be back this evening at 5. Same thing. Take a little initiative. That's all we got to do. Make sure we allow ourselves, in the process of doing, to let our light shine. It's critical if I'm going to be in a leadership role, I got to do what's right. Every time. We have vision, but do we see? I got me some new glasses week before last, and these things are killing me. My others, were a little bigger, and so the sweet spot was down here. These, the kind of things kind of in the middle, and so I'm having to do this when I'm trying to read because I can't find it. There it is right there. And I have to be a little closer too. Of course, part of that's because I got a new Bible and the print's a little bitty in it. I should have got it in like a 24 font. Got a chain horse. Justin, bring it up here and put it in the pulpit and leave it there and just turn it over one page at a time. Don't read long verses. All this vision has to do with, it starts at one place. And it's the same place every time, it's dedication. When we are committed to something, we make it work. We clear out everything that's in the way, and we start working. If something else gets in the way, we clear it out and we make it work. A good example of that is when Nehemiah and them began to rebuild the walls at Jerusalem. On every side, everywhere they started, there was an obstacle in the way. Somebody was against them over here. Somebody else was against them over here. Somebody else was against them over here. But those people had a mind to work, and so they rebuilt the walls of the temple in 52 days. Or the walls of Jerusalem in 52 days. 52 days. Even with distractions. And they worked with a sword beside them, with a weapon beside them. but they had a mind to work. And so they were able to do. That's because they were dedicated. Moses told Israel in Exodus 32 and verse 29, consecrate yourself today to the Lord, even every man upon his son, upon his brother, that he may bestow upon you a blessing this day. God wouldn't bless them until they dedicated themselves. So we keep ourselves pure. That's consecration. That's dedication. Consecrated people do something else we talked about this morning that's very important. And that is they put first things first. First things first. They put study first. They put prayer first. They put worship first. They put the best interests of the church in every work that they do first. Because dedicated people always prepare themselves. When we get ready, then we can be of service. It takes some time, certainly. You don't get to be where you need to be overnight, but you know what I've learned? We're all just exactly like Alan Jackson said, we're all a work in progress. And we continue to build on what we have. We continue to remove things that are in the way. And we add things that will make us better. We lay aside things that beset us. And we add to ourselves, to our faith. And we build on it, and we become stronger. And as we become stronger, those around us who imitate what we're doing, who are also striving to let their light shine, they add some of those things to their life. And then somebody else adds it to their life, and somebody else to their life. And the structure just gets bigger and bigger. And the structure just gets stronger and stronger. And it has nothing to do with numbers. God has always worked through a minority. When Gideon got ready to do battle, I think he started out with around 30,000 men. God wouldn't let him go. It had to be whittled down to, I think, 300 before God would let him go, so that the children of Israel wouldn't think they had accomplished this of their own accord. And they would know that the God of heaven was working. As we decide as a congregation we're going to work together, not together as together, but together with God. And then somebody else says, I'm going to work together, as in together with God. And somebody else says, I'm going to work together, as in together with God. All of a sudden now we're all working together with God and able to work together as one unit. Does that make sense? Yeah, it does, but he doesn't. He gets it. Somebody else raise their hand if they do. We then, as workers together with God. That's what Paul said. And so we begin to apply ourselves in service. God's people are most happy when they work, but so is everybody. Tell you what I learned early on. For a time, when I first got out of the saw business, I had the opportunity to, was offered, and I took it, to come up here and work with the congregation in a full-time capacity. That lasted for me, Sonny, about 6 months, and I thought I was going to go crazy. The less we do, the less we want to do. There's no law in physics. Is that physics? An object in motion tends to stay in motion. An object at rest tends to stay at rest. Do you know how you become a couch potato? Sit down on the couch. Now that doesn't mean that we don't have health issues sometimes and we're forced to slow down. Nature has a way of taking care of our speed eventually. Even Speedy Gonzalez had to slow him down when he was old because he doesn't exist anymore. Hadn't seen him in years. He bound to stop. The Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote have both disappeared from the scene. Do you know why? Because age took a hold. And the beep beep is gone. But we can go back to what the wise man said. Whatsoever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might, all thy strength. He doesn't say you have to be super strong to do it. He just says whatever your hand finds to do it with everything you got. That's what service is all about. I'm going to put into this everything I have. And as with other things of God, the things I do, whatever I put into God's work, will not be in vain, and it will not be void, and it will not be useless. God has promised to us. Whether it be in the example that we set, whether it be in the words that we say, whether it be in some kind of service that we do, God blesses our efforts. Some of our efforts come back 30-fold, some 60, and some 100-fold, all to the glory of God. So let's put on our glasses. Let's use vision to look ahead. Let's put on our dedication. Let's separate ourselves from a mindset that's like the world and set our minds on being like Christ. And let us take that vision and that mindset and let's move forward so we can serve. Take these goals. Is that twice? Goal might be 3 times. Take these goals. Have the courage to finish the work that we've begun. And the courage to find a way when that simple goal is done to reach up and pick up another goal. And work toward that end. Make plans. Prepare. And then put action in motion. We need goals collectively. And we need goals as a congregation. The common goal that we have in mind, that is individual and yet at the same time collectively, is to go to heaven. There's a song that we sing sometimes. I don't remember the name of it. It might be the name of it, When We All Get to Heaven. We don't sing it a lot, but we sing it. When we all get to heaven, what a day of rejoicing that will be. That's a common goal. When we all get to heaven. There's a good starting point right there. And then we can add another goal to that. And that's something Paul said in Galatians chapter 6. We then that are strong ought to bear the infirmities of the weak. Bear ye one another's burdens, and so fulfill the law of Christ. What law is he talking about there? He's talking about the law of love. Jesus said, this new commandment I give unto you, that you love one another. As I have loved you, even so love ye one another. This morning we talked about love. What a beautiful word. What a beautiful concept. What a beautiful action. And what a wonderful ability we have, each and every one of us, to put that concept, that action in motion. It doesn't cost anything to love anybody. I knew a lady. I forget, we're on the internet. I'm not going to say who. Even though I could, it'd be all right. I knew a lady once. And we were talking about children while I was with my mother. My mother, bless her heart, I loved her. Still do. My mother was talking about children. I remember she told me one time she just didn't know if she could really adopt a kid or not. We just talked about that. She said, because I just don't know. I'd be afraid if I did, I'd love them and take away some of the love I have for my own children. And I never said anything, but I thought about that, and it came to me, and it occurred to me that my mother actually believed that love was maybe this big. However big it was maybe this big. And since she had 3 kids, she had to slice that love in 3 equal pieces. And if she sliced it 3 equal pieces, there'd be nothing left over for anybody else. Now, it wasn't that my mother didn't love us, and it wasn't that she didn't love somebody else, but she thought love was limited in size and in scope. But that's not true. Love is not a pie that if we slice it into 12 pieces instead of 8, the pieces get smaller. Love is bigger than that. So we can allow our love for God and our love for our fellow man, our love for our brethren to just grow and grow and grow and grow. It's like the mind. Barring any physical infirmity, the mind just continues to grow. We don't use near all the brain we got. Some of us use less than others. But it's amazing what the human mind can do, and it's amazing what love can do, how large it can grow, and how overwhelming it always is. There's a goal. If you have a need tonight in any way to respond to the invitation, you can come now. While together we stand and sing for your encouragement.